What is good, Danger Zone Boxing Talk? It is BC Left Hook here, as always, with my co-host Twine B. Livity. Tonight, we're just going to jump into some quick topics. First off, what has to be upset of the year, could continue to be upset of the year, was Mikey Garcia, the former 4 division weight world champion, losing a decision to Martin. I was personally shocked by the outcome. I didn't think Mikey did enough to get the victory. In my opinion, it was a clear win for Martin. Mikey had his moments, don't get me wrong. There just wasn't enough of them. He pressed the action, but it wasn't really effective for me most of the time. Hats off to Martin and his team. What did you think of the fight and the upset that we got?
I mean, definitely a shocker for me. We didn't get a chance to do a prediction show last week, but I definitely favored Garcia to win by UD. Um, yeah, it was just a weird performance for him. He looked like he was filling them out early on. Early on in the fight, I felt like Mikey was doing a lot of feigning and trying to get him to catch on or something. And towards like round 3 or 4, we started seeing him. Mikey starting to close the distance on him a little bit, but I mean it wasn't necessarily effective. Sandor Martin, got to give him his props. He was able to maneuver out and make Mikey pay for missing. He couldn't miss with the left all night, man. He definitely was able to keep Mikey at bay. There was a slight height difference, of course, reach, which has been the Mikey Garcia's fault since moving to 147. He was already small as far as ranginess at 140, but 147 has been even more evident against the guys he's been there, and I think that was the case here against Sandor Martin. Uh, who knows what's to say, man? Like he's been in it active for 20 months. It's obvious 147 is not the weight class he needs to be in. After he struggled against Jesse Vargas in a hard fought victory. He won unanimously, but it was a hard fought victory. 147 just doesn't suit him, and I think it's been to his detriment, and it was in this fight as well, considering the layoff.
Yo, can you hear me?
Yeah, you get. All right, having some technical difficulties with my boy BC Left Hook. He should be dropping back in a second. But I mean, as far as where Mikey goes from here, where do you think he should go from here? As far as this latest loss, which was supposed to be a setup for a fight for him to actually move back down to 140 and fight Regis Prograis. So, what do you think Mikey's prospects are right now? Because it's a lot of negative cast over his career right now, being 33.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of overreaction. It wasn't like he went out there and got destroyed. He went out there and the guy outboxed him. There was a lot of factors with this fight. Now there's people that have suggested that Mikey's been lackadaisical about his love for the game since quite a while ago. I've seen people throw shade on his actual career, which I think is ludicrous. Mikey Garcia is a 4 division weight world champion, excellent fighter. I've seen people try to blame the catch weight. The catch weight didn't have nothing to do with it. Now, the long layoff is there. Before we got to see Mikey beat somebody of relevancy now, because I believe he's lost his last 2 fights. So we got to see him with somebody of relevancy before we can even begin to speak about him as a serious contender at this point, in my opinion. I think he can't make 140, so he's got to stay at 147. And I don't think that he's quite the power puncher he was at the lower weight classes. And I think he'll struggle against the better fighters in that division. Possibly even the better fighters in the 140 division. Like, could you see him beating Josh Taylor right now after that performance? I can't. Regis Prograis, that would be an excellent fight. I'm telling you, he's lucky he didn't get the Manny Pacquiao fight. Manny would
I
have,
mean,
because
I've
that
seen
version of Mikey Garcia, Manny
I,
Pacquiao beats him like a punching bag.
I can't jump to that conclusion, man. I've seen people saying that kind of stuff as well. I mean, I can't jump to that conclusion based off of this fight. Both of their performances, actually, considering how Pacquiao looked against Ugas, even though Ugas is a bigger fighter. Um, so I mean, I can't jump to that conclusion. Manny's legs were there from round two, from what he's saying. So I mean,
Come on, bro. Come on. You know Manny.
I
Manny
I
gets.
can't jump to that conclusion, man. I can't. You know what I'm saying? Manny didn't look like Manny against Ugas, and retired. So
That was because of how Ugas fought too. Ugas has that slick style, fam.
yeah,
And
but I mean, you got to think about Mikey as well. You know,
he gonna come straight to Manny.
no, he was forced to be a pressure fighter in this fight. That's not generally Mikey's style either. You know, he likes to counter punch. He likes to be in mid range outside. You know, he's not necessarily a guy that's going to stalk his opponent. So I mean, I don't think he necessarily would have fought the game plan he did against Sandor Martin. You know, Martin just had a perfect game plan as far as moving around and keeping his distance and using his height and reach on him. So I mean, I can't jump to that conclusion. Um, I still think Mikey has some life left. You know, he hasn't taken a lot of wear and tear. It's just been inactivity more than anything. His passion for the sport has always been questioned. You know, from the time he was at 130, 135, it's always been questioned. You know, you got to think he's a guy that he fell into the sport just because of his family. You know, he actually wanted to be a CHP officer as opposed to a pro boxer. You know, he just happened to be more talented than his brothers, who were also world champions. Of course, his trainer Robert Garcia. So I mean, he's definitely never. He's always been looked like he's never had the passion for the sport. But I mean, I'm not going to question his career over this. It happens. It's a hiccup.
I'm not questioning his career. I'm saying that 147. I don't think the man. I
I
don't
mean,
know
of
if he can
course. I
comfortably
mean,
make
yeah,
140 anymore.
he can make 140, man. He got a whole bunch of carnitas in that stomach. If you look at him, like he's always looked soft. I mean, well, I guess since 135, he's looked a little bit softer. But if you look at his body type, like he could squeeze down, you know. So I mean, it just comes down to disciplining himself to make 140. You know, he was scheduled to fight at 140 against Prograis, so apparently he could still make the weight. That wasn't going to be a catch weight fight. That was going to be a fight at 140. So I mean, I'd love to see him go to 140 and fight some quality opponents there. I definitely couldn't see him beating the Joshua Taylor because Taylor comes to fight, and you know he has the he's the same height as Errol Spence, and he's actually big for 140. You know, he's not Errol Spence's size, of course, but you know he has he's 5'10" with the reach, and you know he's it's been a struggle for him at 147 for Mikey. The guys are just bigger than him. You know, he's not Sean Porter athletically, who can be undersized and make a dogfight out of everything. That's not Mikey's traditional boxing style. So, I mean, honestly, I think 140 we could still see something from him, but I need to see him against somebody soon. Somebody at that weight class. I still would be interested in seeing him fight Prograis, but he's got to get a win under his belt. You know, 2 losses out of his last 3 fights is just not a good look for seeing him in another big fight anytime soon. So I mean, I want to see him get 2 good victories, maybe even one before Prograis. I still love to see that next year, and you know he get his body back to 140 comfortably.
All right. All right. Moving on. It's been an interesting day, man. It really has. So the Canelo-Plant Undercard was announced today. Um, so, some names on the card. Dirrell. Um, that's an excellent fight, I think. But looking at this lineup, I like Ray Vargas, and uh, he's a quality fighter. But looking at this undercard and knowing that this is a pay-per-view event, how good does the Caleb Plant Canelo fight have to be for you to make it worth it? Because I'm sorry, this undercard is not worth pay-per-view. So the main event better be spectacular.
Well, I mean, that's what happens when you have the cash king and or the cash cow of the sport. You know, you got to offer them top dollar, and you got to kind of neglect the undercard because of that. I honestly think they could probably pull in the pay per views if they made it a stronger undercard. But you got so much guaranteed money going to between Canelo and Plant, which is what 50 million between them at least in guarantees. So I mean, it's kind of hard to make a decent undercard with that. It'll be the return of Ray Vargas. I'm a little upset about that fight because he'll be fighting at super bantam again, as opposed to featherweight, which he made all this fuss about becoming the mandatory for Gary Russell at 126. Or at least he was ordered to fight Gary Russell at 126, and we actually thought we were going to see that fight this year, according to reports that it was already signed, sealed, and delivered. So, I mean, it's a little bit disappointing as far as that, but I mean, it's good to see him back in the ring. And I forgot who will be making their PBC debut.
None of these fights excite me. Like,
mean,
the Elvis Rodriguez fight is about the best fight on the.
I'm interested in seeing that. I'm interested in seeing Elvis Rodriguez debut under the PBC banner. I'm interested in seeing that and see how he comes back from his loss.
So yeah, I mean, that's about the only one though, because like Dirrell's, he should mop his opponent, and I'm sorry, Vargas should too. Even though I know the kid from Mexico, he's a tough guy.
I mean, it's easy for Dirrell even at this stage, so it might be a more competitive fight than we're giving credit for right now. Dirrell, he's a veteran, of course, but he's seen his better days. So I mean, it's not like it might.
I'll picture that fight goes a distance and just it's sloppy and both of them are tired.
Snooze fest, yeah. It can most likely be a snooze fest. It's very possible. So I mean, this undercard definitely doesn't do it, but you got to think it's Canelo, and he has a fan base that's loyal to him. So they're expecting it to pull through no matter what, and of course they still got Ray Vargas on there, to pull in the rest. So are expecting at least that crowd to be watching for him. So
any of the fights, like, because I think we're in agreement, we favor Rodriguez, Vargas, and Dirrell, but any could you see any upset? We've seen quite a few upsets this year.
If I could pick an upset, it would probably be the Dirrell fight, and I'm gonna have to go look at some tape. But if it's anyone that I'm picking to upset, it'll be that one, just because.
Dirrell, be careful, man. Hey, one of his brothers tried to fight EJ. He went in the comments who got salty, man.
Well, I mean, we've had Andre on the show before, on our shows before. I've done podcasts with him. So, I mean, it's nothing negative. It's just like I feel like we've seen the other days from Anthony Dirrell.
Isn't their uncle the one that punched the opponent?
Yeah, I think it was a cousin or an uncle that. He punched
no, it was a family member though. He went over there and stole on his opponent for hitting him after the bell. I think they had just stopped the fight on disqualification.
It's got to be. Yeah.
Yeah, you better be careful with that family, bro. You know what I'm saying? All right, I'm gonna stay away from Dirrell because I don't want no smoke with the peeps over there. I'm gonna take a real long shot here and say maybe Ray Vargas.
I mean, at 122, Ray Vargas still has the intangibles, man, with that long gas reach. And it has been a long layoff for him too, and we've seen it affect Mikey Garcia this past weekend. So I mean, you're possibly right.
His opponent's not total, tomato can status, and he's got some experience. I think he's got 31 fights or 25 fights.
Yeah, so I mean, it could be either one of those fights. Like I said, inactivity for Ray Vargas. This will be his first fight coming off of his motorcycle accident. So he's going on over a year and a half and some change, and so I mean, it's definitely possible that could be the one with the upset as well. But I mean, I'm not ruling either one of those out. But I mean, just because I feel like Dirrell has had some kind of sluggish performances his most recent fights, I kind of feel like that I would lean towards that one being the upset.
I don't mean to interrupt the flow of the show, but I kind of feel like we didn't do the last topic justice because we ended it with where do we see Mikey Garcia going? But what about the winner, Sandor Martin? I mean, after
Um,
performance like that, does he suddenly jump into contender? Because it was at a catch weight of 145, but we
he's
know that they're 147, and he just beat again a 4 division world champion, one of the bigger names in the sport. Is this enough to catapult him into contender status at 147, or is it he not getting enough justice he deserves because Mikey, a lot of questions surrounding Mikey and where he's at in his career and everything?
I mean, honestly, he's supposedly saying he's going to stay at 140. You know, that was his weight class, so he's not really a 140 a welterweight fighter. So he's saying he's going to stay at 40. If anything, I expect a rematch.
Well,
That's
I
honestly,
believe today they had said no rematch clause, so they didn't
yeah. I
have
mean,
any.
why would there be a rematch clause? There's no
Okay.
title at stake. I mean,
No.
there's no title at stake. So I mean, but I would expect them to run it back. You know, it would be another payday for Sandor. I don't see any big fights necessarily on the horizon for him at 140 because it was a catchweight fight.
Agree.
So
So you think that from the way you're talking, I think you favor Mikey Garcia to win the rematch? Should they, make that?
yeah, I mean, I think I would expect them to make the adjustments. I don't know what Sandor would do differently. I can see what I can see definitely Mikey improving a lot more than Sandor. So, yeah, I would favor Mikey. You know, even though this was a disappointing loss for him and a shocking loss for most of the viewers, I would favor him going into a rematch. And honestly, I think Sander would lean towards that fight as long as it
I
was.
don't think Garcia would take it because if he loses again to this guy, his career is really in serious doubt.
Well, you got
And
what's boxing built on? You know,
yeah, but
guys.
what's more to gain? What's more to gain? Well, there's nothing to gain. Like, because the only thing you take if you beat Sandor Martin, if you go out now, if he was to go out there and destroy him in 1 to 3 rounds,
Exactly.
of course, then it profits.
Yeah,
Because
I
then it
mean,
becomes it was an utter fluke, and any excuse that's put forward by him or his fan base at that point would be seemingly justified. But here's the other side: if he loses that motherfucker, you know what I mean? Then the questions really become into play. Then all the criticism, because I've seen a lot of slight criticism from some people and on social media and in different platforms. If he would lose again, he would because the people that are still kind of on the fence, they're gonna jump sides over there. Yeah, Mikey, in the media and other social media platforms.
I mean,
I think
I'm
it's I don't think it's a good idea to fight that guy again. Go fight somebody else, like one of the guys that we had spoke on.
I'm looking at it from this angle. He avenges his loss. It needs to be a dominant victory, if anything. He can't go out there and just outpoint this guy. He needs to destroy him. But boxing is made on guys avenging losses. I mean,
I agree with you, but like sometimes you got to look at the win loss
I
effect.
mean, but who is he going to move forward against after a loss to this guy? Like you have to avenge
And
this.
he could still potentially get um he could Josh Taylor. He could still get he could even still it depends on where he's going to stay. If he goes down to 140, he could fight any of the contenders, or maybe even set up a fight with Josh Taylor, because that's still a big money fight because his name is Mikey Garcia. He's going to put butts in seats, right? That or he goes to 147. He can still get a fight with one of the bigger name
I don't
contenders.
see him getting any big fights off of this loss. I mean, it's so bad that Regis Prograde tweeted "fuck" after the loss because he just
I
ruined.
still think that Prograde would fight him.
It's
It's
not a
still
matter.
at the end of the day, bro.
It's not a matter of that though. It's a matter of the buildup. You know, he's coming off a loss to somebody that nobody practically knew.
Well, we'll have to see how they spin it in the next few months, is what I'm saying. At some point, if they're going to try to spin it in an angle that'll tell you they're moving on from, because I don't see no value in fighting Martin again. I just don't. I see if you lose that fight, you're done. You can still
even,
right now get a
this
big
fight was
fight.
possible, Prograis. I don't see it possible right now. I think Prograis. I think he thinks Mikey ruined the money for him. You know, because of this loss, he has to. I feel like he
in
has
order to ensure that I get that big money fight, then I'm gonna go fight a trash, like, quote unquote taxi cab driver, knock him the fuck out on ESPN Plus or ESPN, whichever one. Or I'm sorry, because you don't buy, you know what I mean. Or that.
I don't think another cab driver is going to cut it building up to a Regis Prograis fight or making that happen. I don't think another
bro. It's all about the spin, bro. All they gotta do is just march him out there and he knocks some dude out. And then, they start spinning it in the media. I lost to Martin, all the time off, whatever it is.
But
People are going to forget about that loss, and they're going to remember that brutalizing knockout, and then they're going to run fucking highlights of all his knockouts. You know what I mean? He's got some brutal ones, right?
What spin is better?
People forget about that Martin loss.
What spin is better? Is it going to be him fighting another cab driver or him running through this guy that he's avenging a loss against, and he's putting on the dominant performance?
I don't know that he can run through him, bro. Because like I think the guy kind of,
I'm just saying he has to have a dominant performance if it's a rematch. That's the only thing that will make it better. There is no better scenario for him to land a big fight. There is no better scenario than avenging your loss and being putting on a dominant performance.
He's fighting exclusively on DAZN now, right?
Nah, he's on the fight by. He's a promotional free agent. So, I mean, he's still open to it. And, as far as the Josh Taylor fight, you got the Bob Arum thing.
I know.
The whole bad blood between him and Bob Arum.
The weasel. I see somebody, Alexis Romero, shout out to Next Level Boxing, made this meme and he had exposed on. I forgot. I don't know why I said ESPN, but yeah. He got to either get on Showtime or DAZN and knock some fucking cab driver out and build some buzz. It's easy. Bro, we've seen it over and over and over, bro. We've seen guys lose fights worse fashion than this and get crazy fights like off a loss, bro. World title fights off a loss. Like, come on, bro.
I mean, this isn't Daniel Dubois losing against Joe Joyce here, though. You know what I'm saying?
See, guys we have, bro. You know it. You would be like, how the fuck did this guy get a title fight, bro?
We've seen it before, but I mean, Mikey definitely needs to
and he's got that big name, bro. Mikey Garcia. Like even after he lost, he still had a bigger name than the guy that beat him.
Yeah. But I mean, to me, the perfect scenario would be him avenging this loss in a dominant fashion to get the Prograis fight. That to me, that would be the best situation.
Right. Real quick, let's go back through our comments. Mechie Santana came in and said hi. Hey, Mechie. Clarence McLean came in and said, "What's up, fellas? I miss you."
I want to know what Clarence thinks. You know what I'm saying? Clarence always
shout out to Mechie.
Yeah, Clarence always got a good outtake on things too. I kind of want to know what he thinks about Garcia moving forward as well.
Yeah, I hope he's still in here. You can maybe jump in the comments or whatever.
What about the whole thing that went on during the presentation though? Lopez and Haney and them going back and forth.
Okay, so let's go ahead and jump into that real fast. I'm gonna play a video for those who haven't seen it. This is a little part of the argument that ensued at the fight.
Hey, y'all fake it till y'all make it. Y'all fake it till y'all make it. What y'all do, man? Y'all don't want to fight. Y'all don't want to fight.
How we don't want to fight? We can make it happen.
We can make it happen. We can definitely make it happen.
You on the zone now.
Why you don't talk? My thing is like, yo, y'all do all this, but y'all don't really want to fight.
What you gonna do? Can we do it right here on the zone?
Yo, we can do it anywhere.
We can do it here.
ESPN, the
So later on, there was some more disrespect spit from both sides, but there was a seemingly handshake agreement to fight in January. There was a lot of really good back and forth. I really enjoy. I love that type of stuff. I think the game needs it. Hey, I want real fast. Want to send a shout out to the homie Carl Smith. Says Lopez is years ahead ahead of Haney. It's good to see you again, Carl, man. I would agree with you. I think Lopez defeats Haney and most likely knocks Haney out. Because from what I've seen from Haney, I think Lopez is going to be able to touch you. And but I love that type of stuff. What did you think of it? What's your reaction to it?
I liked what I saw, but at the end of the day, I know it's a fight that's not going to happen. Just because of the way I pay attention to the news. You got Teofimo still has Kambosos to deal with, which is not going to happen on the date everybody was expecting in November. It's looking like more likely towards December. So, I mean, that rules out anything happening in January. Also, I've seen both Teofimo Sr. and Junior say that they have a fight lined up, or they were promised the fight against Josh Taylor after this one against Kambosos. So I'm not really expecting anything to come out of that whole back and forth between them. I would love to see the fight, but it's even better for me at 140. Devin definitely has a body that looks like it needs to be at 140 as well as Teofimo. I was surprised at the size discrepancy at the actual card. I didn't think Haney was that taller than him, prior to them getting together face to face. So, I mean, I was surprised at that, which makes me kind of anticipate it happening at 140. But I don't see it happening no time soon, man. But
I agree with you. I 100% agree with you because having had Junior Lopez on the show prior, they had always expressed a desire to beat Lomachenko and jump right into 140. From the first time I spoke to the man, that was what he had stated to me, and it appears to be that's the way they're wanting to, route Teofimo's career. But I love it at the same time. All right, so let's get into this. Who won the roasts, though? I think Teofimo roasted him out there with some of the stuff he said.
I mean, that's been kind of the talk on social media as far as Devin Haney bringing up his followers and stuff. But I kind of feel like it was an accurate response considering Teofimo was saying he made his name off of Teofimo, or Haney is making his name off of mentioning him, which I think is ridiculous. Teofimo has mentioned Haney just as much as far as the whole email champ. So, I mean, he speaks as much on Haney as, it goes back and forth between them. But as far as the Saturday night, that was a pretty good roast. And the only thing Haney
he told him, what he tell him, fake it until you make it.
Yeah. I mean,
he told you got your belt emailed to you. You carried around everywhere. I'm surprised you ain't got it now. That shit was funny, bro. I don't get that.
Yeah, so I mean, he probably got the round, but I mean, looking at the whole totality of it, it's kind of like it was goofy. Just because they both talking about each other so much, and the whole email champ thing, me and you were kind of going back and forth with it before. Haney's kind of like a victim of circumstance with that as far as
I agree.
So, I mean, I didn't really. It was funny though. It was definitely funny.
Yeah. So I think that's good for the game. Now on to our last topic of the night. Real before we do that, he said Carl came back and said Haney does not have good hands on defense. Lopez asked what happened to the meeting with Bob, once again showing that Aram needs to go. Right. So again, but let's jump over to our last topic of the night. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but Romero did an interview with TMZ I found quite hysterical. I'll play a portion of it, and then we'll come back and give our reactions.
I'm gonna say it like this, man. Tank's gonna get knocked the fuck out, and like I said, whoever believes otherwise can go fuck themselves, because you know what, man, the thing is, the best thing about Tank is that he's a puncher, and I'm a bigger puncher, and I'm a bigger person. What the fuck does he have?
So you think
he gets tired every single.
You think you got more power?
I punch way harder than him. Ask anyone that knows us both.
So
that's seen us both. They'll tell you straight up.
December 5th, man.
December 5th
in LA. What's your prediction for the fight? You knocking him out?
I'm gonna knock him the fuck out.
What round?
One round. He's gonna run right into something because he's stupid.
What's your message to Tank here?
Don't get COVID.
Don't get COVID.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the whole thing, is when he told him, "Don't get COVID, bitch." And like, people who don't follow the sport, they won't understand what he's saying, but me and you get it, because it's been a accusation that has arisen since the pandemic is if you want to duck a fight, you suddenly got COVID, right? So I thought that was the best part of the interview. The other stuff I expected from him, but I thought that was quite witty. What did you think of his comments, though, and how do you think Tank will react?
I mean, man, we knew the build up to this fight was going to be hilarious with Rolly. You know, he's a social media marvel when it comes to this. I kind of agree with what Carl was saying. He needs a speech coach. He has that whole Keith Thurman lisp thing going on, but it makes it funny for the talk. You know, maybe Tank might knock his lisp in place. But I mean, that wasn't the only clip I've seen of Rolly since the beginning or since the fight was announced. You know, he had the whole thing. If you ever seen a dead body where he's beating up with a balloon or something like that in the middle of the street. So I mean, Rolly's definitely doing this part of building the fight, and Tank's being kind of quiet. I think he responded on Twitter, but it was something like lay low, you know, just see kind of thing. But that's what's kind of scary for me. I think Tank is dialed in. You know, like they don't like each other. And from what Ellaby was saying, you know, they had to stop them from going at each other at the Spence Garcia fight last year. So I honestly feel like the buildup is going to get even better. Just wait till they have some press conferences and stuff like that happen. The fight week is going to be crazy. I'm surprised they're not doing it in Vegas. Why they're bringing it to LA? Both guys are based out of Vegas is beyond me. But I definitely feel like Rolly is winning the troll war right now. He's up 2-0 against Tank, but you know I don't see Tank doing anything drastic. He just had another daughter recently. Congratulations to him. So I kind of think that's where his head's been is with that, and you know just focusing on this fight. So you know they say a silent person is a dangerous one, and we'll just have to see him fight night.
I love Rolly. I love his outtakes. They're hilarious every time.
Yeah.
I would love to see him and Ryan Garcia sign for a fight. I know that cash shit he would talk about Ryan. I agree with Carl. He does need a speech coach. What did you think about his comment that Tank is stupid and he's gonna walk into something in the first round though?
I mean, we could say the same about Rolly. like he's not necessarily
That's what I'm saying. I think Tank's fundamentally more sound than Rolly by far.
Yeah, we know that. Yeah, we know that. Tank has the amateur background over Rolly. Rolly was actually in jiu-jitsu prior to boxing. Yes, I mean, he's still a relative newcomer to boxing compared to Tank. You know, Tank has a pretty good amateur pedigree. So
you think he has any merit that he's a bigger puncher than Tank? I don't think so.
Hell no. I mean, I talked to Shea Smith on Twitter back and forth sometimes, and like he's been saying for years that he's seen Tank knocking out guys at 160 with 16-ounce gloves and headgear. So I definitely don't think Rolly's the bigger puncher. Tank can crack. Tank can really crack, and we've seen it. We've seen it.
So, but I think we're both in agreement. Rolly's best chance is to catch him with something early in the fight because Tank does have a notoriously slow start to fights.
Yeah, and I mean that is his best chance is to overwhelm Tank early, especially with Rolly being a pressure guy and liking to be on top of his opponents. Bring the fight to Tank, and it's going to make for an exciting one.
I'm interested to see what else we get as the fight gets inches closer. But that was our last topic of the night. It was great to be here and talk boxing, my guy. I got to roll out. Twine, anything you want to say before we bounce out, bro?
Just thanks for tuning in, man. And always an honor to get on, and we'll be on, more consistently this week. We got some other stuff coming on. It's a big fight week as well. We got Jamel Herring and Shakur Stevenson this weekend, so we'll be doing our breakdown of that this week as well.
Absolutely. All right, we out. Y'all be blessed.